We'll do 4 and 8. Because if you break 12 down, it's 4 times 3. So 4 and 8, and then 4.5 on the side, because it's 9 inches, so 4.5 on each side. And these will give you your little sections. All right, so now I've got my sections. I'm going to go ahead and label them. Somebody grab that. If I can spell. Can somebody grab that, please? All right, and then 2-color blending. And then we have hatching. And then we did scrumbling. And stippling. And sgraffito. Sgraffito. So blending is really easy. You've already done it on your color wheel. So I'm just going to start with you can really start with any color. I'm going to start with green. I'm going to break the green. And I start with a little bit of pressure, then I just kind of take the pressure off to make it lighter. Just like if you're working with a pencil or a crayon, you really press it down to get it darker. And you can go in and just use your finger and blend it. So you can just blend it out that way and go back the other direction. So it's just an easy blend. So 2-color blend, same thing. Just kind of start with a little pressure, lighten up a little bit. And I'm going to go with a color that is analogous to the green, so I'm going to go with blue. Because we don't want to do a complementary when we're doing the 2-color blending, unless you want to make some like a brownish color. And then you just blend it together. So this is really good when you're like making backgrounds and skies, going from that light blue to say an orange or something like that. If you're doing a sunset, from a dark purple all the way down to like a light blue and orange. And then we have hatching. So hatching, you can just start by just making lines, just like we did the hatching when we were making our spheres. And then you can go with an analogous color of some sort and go back across it. And it's going to blend it. It's going to go ahead and blend those colors together. That's really why I like oil pastels. It's so easy to create new colors just by quickly blending them together. It's not like trying to do it with map colors or markers. So hatching is a really good way to do grass, and if you want to create depth in your piece, see how easily the other colors just glide on top of it and you can still see the colors underneath it. So that's a good layering technique, especially if you're trying to get like this sense of depth. You start with like a flat green, and you bring in some yellows and some darker greens and some bright greens back on top, and it look like a nice pasture or field. And then we have scrumbling. This one's just kind of just loosen up your hand and just kind of make some curly cues. Make them. This is a good way to make trees, actually. Or in this case, I'm going to make some fire. Fire. And you can use a few colors. Just make sure that you're using analogous colors when there's a lot of blending going on, because if you end up using stuff across the color wheel, it gets real muddy very quickly. So I'm using the warm colors, and those will blend together really nicely to kind of make this fiery look. And I'm just letting the blending happen by drawing over the top of the other and still leaving white space to kind of give it more texture. Next is stippling. This is a really good way to make like a field of flowers. Start with some green. It's not like using a fine point pen, it's more like big dots or dashes. And a good way to clean off your oil pastel is just grab another sheet of paper and just kind of draw to get the extras off. Those, if you want the color to be pure so you're not mixing another color in there. This is like if you have ever painted and you're dabbing to make like flowers or textures. Kind of the same thing when you're stippling. So you can see how this would be fun to do, like this big pasture of flowers, like springtime. You can even come in here and put some complementary colors in a little bit here and there. Just being careful. Maybe even some like and you can also use it for shading purposes as well, especially when doing like trees. And then the last one is sgraffito. So this is fun. You're actually carving out and revealing the underlayer of the paper. So let's do green this time. So I'm just bringing it in and filling in my square. So this paper is just a little bit textured, the drawing paper that we're using. It's the same stuff I've been using all semester, but it's a little textured, so the oil pastel is going to get down inside those textures. So when you do go back through and scratch, you can use like a paper clip, and you just can peel it off the top layer. It's a good way to make some effects, especially going back in and doing some drawing on top. You can use things like toothpicks as well if you really want some fine lines. So if you want this kind of like drawing, you can use like the toothpicks. You can even use the backs of pencils, like a big flat area, like a beveled area, to really take a lot of it off. And you can do that to like bring in highlights, especially if you're making like rocks. It's a really good way to bring in highlights on rocks. So you do the whole thing in like grays and blacks, then you bring in and just basically carve out the highlights. All right, so that's blending, two-color blending, hatching, scrumbling, stippling, and sgraffito. So now your fun part is to redo those. So 6 squares, 6 techniques, mark at the 4 and the 8 at the top and bottom, 4 and 8 on your ruler, and 4.5 on the side for your lines. And then you can start with any color. Remember, you want your colors to be kind of analogous, meaning on the same area of the color wheel. So you don't want to go for complements because then it'll get really muddy really quickly. Any questions? Good, okay.